all right. Get ready to get them started now. All right. Right to it. All right. I heard you were on no mask today. We're going to give up the mask. Okay. All right.
Those of us that acknowledge or commit intellectual violence don't do so with the pleasure of mental masturbation or ego diddling. We do so because the chains of oppression in our people's minds are deep and difficult to remove.
Hey, Tracy. All right, Steve. All right, here we go. Good morning, my children of the sun. Welcome to the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. Yes, indeed. I'm your third eye optometrist, Patrice Gibbs. Get ready to get them started. We'll soon be joined by my partner in consciousness, Nsoromma. Before I get it going, let me get this disclaimer out the way.
The views and opinions expressed on Open Eye are those of the host, guests, and contributors, and do not reflect the policy or position of WHGE 95.3 FM, nor our sponsor, the Delaware Center for Homeless Vets. Any content provided by Open Eye's hosts, guests, or contributors are theirs and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, company, or individual.
WHGE 95.3, the education advocacy station. Yes, indeed, education is the right word because guess what? When you come on Open Eye, you're going to get some education. Let me start off right here. Afrocentrism versus Afrocentricity. Afrocentrism versus Afrocentricity. What is Afrocentrism? How is it different from Afrocentricity, and what are the facts and fictions about these terminologies? First, the term Afrocentrism was coined by American Jewish historian Mary R. Lefkowitz in her book, which came out in 1996, Not Out of Africa, where she claims that Greek civilization was not stolen from Africa via Egypt. I don't know if you ever saw the debate between Mary Lefkowitz and the great Dr. John Henry Clark. He ate her ass up, and he let her speak first, and there was another guy there, I don't remember, but he was also a so-called historian, all right? And Dr. Clark said, he started his statement with, I don't know why they're calling this a debate. Famous line from Dr. Clark. I don't know why they're calling this a debate, because I only debate my equals. This is a lesson. Now, critics say Lefkowitz is a sympathizer of white supremacy who is motivated by ideology more than scientific facts, which I definitely go along with. Interestingly, she made up the term Afrocentrism without any direct link to any renowned African scholar or their writings. Okay, she made up the term as a criticism, saying that the history that was taught to us by great scholars like Cenk Anka Diop, Dr. Ben Yokanam, and Dr. John Henry Clark. Oh man, the list goes on. Drusilla Dungy Houston. Oh man, like I said, the list just goes on. Afrocentricity, on the other hand, was coined by African American professor Malif Kete Asante, Temple University, as the interpretation of reality from African perspectives. According to the scholar, the ultimate goal of Afrocentricity is as follows. 1, decolonize information and knowledge. Free black people from centuries of European miseducation. Establish an African paradigm which makes African people the subject and not object of history and civilization. Unfortunately, most people are familiar with Afrocentrism, which is a made-up term, and not Afrocentricity, the actual social scientific theory. In fact, anyone who rejects white or yellow Egypt hypotheses and reaffirms the black African origin of Egypt and Nubia as told by all ancient records will be classified as Afrocentric by detractors, and so it goes. Okay, let me tell you what Egyptology is. Egyptology is not a science. You ever heard of Russianology or Americantology or Romantology or Greekology? No, Egyptology is an information control apparatus. Never forget that. Okay, that's how they come up with crap like that guy that came on, what was it, Good Morning America, where he was some kind of scientist, DNA scientist or reconstruction scientist, and he came with this bust of Nefertiti. And it was a white woman. You should have seen the black reporter on there at that time, who looked at this bus and was like, what the hell? She should have spoke up. She should have spoke up and said, hey, this is fake as hell. Get your ass out of here with this fake mess. And not only that, the bus of Nefertiti, who was considered one of the most beautiful women in history, this was what, and I'm not saying that white women are homely, but this bust that he made of this white woman, it was one homely wench. Let me tell you. She was hard on the eyes, so I don't know who the hell. Jeez Louise, look. Let me tell you something. I've been asked about it. Why you wear the Ankh? What is the Ankh? Okay, the Ankh is actually an electromagnetic device. You see it in the hands of the gods. When you see the hieroglyphics and the depictions and sculptures and what have you. You also see the gods carrying a scepter, which is a device we use to move stones for pyramids. Oh, that sounds far-fetched, doesn't it? Well, let me tell you something. We have lost our ancient knowledge. We have lost our ancient abilities, having too much contact with devils and losing our sense of spirituality and what have you, okay? We also used a JEG, which is the spine of God to transfer consciousness. It too is an electromagnetic device. The Sa, look these things up, S-A, the Sa is used for protection. Shanu represents the sun or eternity. Ra is the falcon-headed god. Ra is the one above. Siva is the dimension of freedom. It's the fourth dimension. It's time. Hathor is the mother of God and the spirit of fertility. Horus's eye is the pineal gland. And by the way, we're Kemites. We never called ourselves Egyptians. That's a Greek name. Our education protocol is called Kemetic Mystery System. Scholars from around the world came to Kemet, Timbuktu, the Gold Coast, and other regions nearby to learn about astronomy, botany, pharmacology, geography, chemistry, and most important, geometry. But none has never completed the 20-year education process. You all hailed the Greek Pythagoras for his theorem. However, the Kemites used that equation almost 2,000 years before his birth. Western education calls Hippocrates the father of medicine. Excuse me, But his teacher was a Chemite. And Hippocrates studied at the temple of Imhotep. Okay? What's up, Ray? Brother Vaughn, how y'all doing? All right, all right. Getting this lesson in here. All right. All right. Now, let me see, boys, over a little bit here. All right, all right. Now, Kemet is the beginning and was the collegiate of the universe. Advanced study of all life in academics. Here is numerous facts and accounts of history of the Greeks in their own narrations in the books and travels of history of their academics. This is all their quotes. This is from the Greeks. The ancient Greeks trace all human inventions to the Egyptians or the Kemites. From calculus, geometry, astronomy, and dice games to writing. A history of the modern world from R.R. Palmer corroborate this historic truism by contending that Europeans were by no means the pioneers of human civilization. By no means. Half a man's recorded history had passed before anyone in Europe could read or write. Europe was a place of illiteracy, probably up until the 1700s. The priests of Egypt began to keep written records between 4000 and 3000 BC. But more than 2,000 years later, the poems of Homer were still being circulated in the Greek city-states by word of mouth because they were illiterate. Shortly after 3000 BC, while the kings were building the first pyramids, Europeans were creating nothing more distinguished than huge garbage heaps. Okay? Aristotle himself, writing in Metaphysics. Aristotle said, thus the mathematical sciences, first proton, originated in Egypt. Egypt is the cradle of mathematics, that is the country of origin for Greek mathematics. That's where they learned it. In prologue to Proteus' commentaries on Euclid's Elements, a disciple of Aristotle named, while I figure out this Greek pronunciation, Eudemus, who lived in the 4th century BC, confirms. We shall say, following the general tradition, that the Egyptians were the first to have invented geometry. That Thales, the first Greek to have been in Egypt, brought this theory, therefore, to Greece. The fact of the matter is that the famous, well-known Greeks, Europeans, who we study and revere in school curricula today, all study at the feet of the ancient Kemites, Africans in the Nile Valley. Kemet. For example, Plato studied at the temple of Waset for 11 years. Notice I said 11 years. Aristotle was there for 11 to 13 years. Socrates, 15 years. Euclid stayed for 10 to 11 years. The only one that really stayed long enough to complete the 20-year course was Pythagoras. He stayed for 22 years. Hippocrates studied for 20 years, like I said, at the temple of Imhotep. And for the other Greeks who matriculated at Waset, included Diodorus, Solon, Thales, Archimedes, and Euripides. Indeed, the Greek Saint Clement of Alexandria once said that if you were to write a book of 1,000 pages, you would not be able to put down the names of all the Greeks who went to Kemet to be educated, and even those who did not surreptitiously claim they went, because it was prestigious. The fact of the matter is that it took 40 years to graduate, matriculate from Waset. This then means that none of the Greeks graduated. Thales was the first Greek student to receive his training from Kemetic priests in the Nile Valley. Plato records that Thales was educated in Kemet under the priests. Proclus reports that Thales introduced science, philosophy, and mathematics, geometry to Greek. Greek intellectual life started with the Kemetic trained student Thales. He was the founder of the first Greek school of philosophy and science. Thales strongly recommended that Pythagoras travel to Kemet to receive his basic education and to converse as often as possible with the priests of Memphis and Thebes. In the fall of 332 BC, when Alexander invaded Egypt, Aristotle accompanied him. Aristotle ranked the country of the pharaohs the most ancient archaeological reserve in the world. He wrote, that is how the Egyptians, whom we considered as the most ancient of the human race. The Temple of Waset, the world's first university and known as Scepter, was built during the reign of Amenhotep III in the 18th dynasty, 1391 BC. At its zenith, it educated 80,000 students. The education of the Kemites. All right. Good morning, Sherry. How you doing, sister? All right. We're going to take a musical break here. Welcome Nsoromma on the air. And keep it going. Let's see. We're going to take care of not that. We'll go with this. All right. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. Hey, what's up? Chop.
Yaga, good morning, everybody. Steve, Sherry, Ray, yo, what's good? Hey, yo, Bessie and Tracy, hey, yo, Missy, all the posse that's watching, you know what I mean? Luther, Wagwan. What's good? You know I got 17 jobs, you know what I'm saying? My fault, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I got a phone call earlier. I didn't even know if it was up or not. That's how we get down. We don't know till we know.
Yeah, that's it. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. Yeah, buddy. We got a little static going here. All right. Welcome to the air, Nsoromma, my partner in consciousness. How you doing this morning,
What's
brother?
good, bro? Hello,
all right.
radio family. What's good? Wagwan. Chop.
All right. Yes, indeed. Yo, I got to tell you about this. Many of our people, unfortunately, are very much spiritually miseducated. Okay?
Right.
And we view Buddha or voodoo as something evil. All right? And it's not.
I know.
Okay? And many of us don't know that. Okay? It is one of the many ways that we connect with the ancestors, one of the many spiritual systems that we can. It comes out of West Africa and probably dates back to Kemet. Okay? To get a primary education on Buddha,
Right.
What's the brother's name? Jeez Louise. But he wrote this book. Oh my God, I can't believe it slipped my mind just that quick. Ishmael Reed. That's the brother's name. Look up Ishmael Reed. And what's the name of the book? I can't remember the name of the book. Hey, Steve, you on there? Help me out with the name of that book.
Steve, what's the name of the book?
You know who I'm talking about, Ishmael Reed. All right, he wrote a book. And this book will give you a primary education on Buddha.
Okay.
It is not for everybody. It is to connect with our ancestors. Now, you have some, hey, Steve is a Caucasian and he knows and understands. All right. But you have some that break into our spirituality, okay, with their heart wrong, with their mind wrong. All right. And it was this young Caucasian lady,
Right.
They say a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Well, she had a little knowledge.
Okay.
Okay. And this sister on TikTok cracked on her and said, hey, you better slow your roll because you don't know what you're getting involved with. You're calling on African ancestors and you're from Europe. It's not a good idea. All right. Well, she didn't, the young Caucasian lady, she did not take the criticism well.
Okay.
Okay. And in her arrogance and white privilege, she informed the sister that she needs to be careful because she has connected with these ancestors.
She got connections.
Yeah, she got connections. You know?
Okay.
And yet she warned her that she can call on these spirits to punish her, to punish this young black woman for her criticism.
Okay.
So she called on Papa Legba. That's what this young kid
going back up yet. Papa who?
Legba.
Legba.
Yes,
Okay.
he's a chief spirit in Bhutan.
A chief spirit in Bhutan. So
Yeah.
it's serious. All right.
Yeah, she called on Legba. And suddenly she died.
Yo, they better quit playing.
You better quit playing.
Hey, I'm like this. If we was the last thing supposed to be made, it's all kind of stuff out there.
Yes, indeed.
If we were the last thing, people were the last things that the Creator has supposed to create. Just think of how many other things is out there, man.
Before.
Yeah,
That's
before our essence of becoming.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
that's crazy, man.
Yeah. So for those of you that think you can play with African spirituality and contact some ancestors that you are not authorized or qualified to call on or deal with, you better be careful. You better be careful.
Yeah.
That's where, you know, because
Voodoo was the original medicine, right?
well, it's a spiritual system out of West Africa that
I thought they mixed herbs and everything with inside of.
oh yeah, that's all part of the system.
Yeah.
You know, the education is all part of the system. You know, it's one of the reasons, like I said, in ancient Kemet, you know, the courses were 40 years long. Okay?
Right, 40 years. Ain't
Yeah.
nobody graduate.
You know, well, the Africans did.
Because they lived there.
Yeah, the African priesthood, yeah. The Greeks, they dropped out after 15, 20 years and they didn't make it. You know? And it's something when you go west in Africa that these spiritual systems are still in practice under different names and different processes.
Right.
And these spiritual practices. You know, it's something that's interesting that Western physicians and doctors,
Right.
when they would meet up with the African physicians, they call them witch doctors.
Right.
Okay?
And that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
They call their stuff medicine, and when they doing the same thing, that they really stealing it from them, and then they call, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
You know?
There's always the flip to flop with the America.
Of course.
America, you know.
Or the Europeans.
Yeah.
You know? Well, it took those so-called witch doctors who were physicians. Right? It took them 40 years to be able to practice. Okay? So when you started studying at the age of 15 or so,
Right.
all right, you were 55 before you were allowed to practice. Okay? Because they knew what they were doing.
Right.
Now, one of the things that they point out is that the witch doctors would cast spells and say, "Ugabaka, you know, and then they give you something to drink.
What they say back.
Ugawaka, you know,
All right, I'm back.
and give you something to drink.
I'm back.
But what they had did, they were that was a psychological thing. Look, let me tell you something. When you go to the doctor, now they don't.
John West Blassman. Thanks, Steve.
Right. Who?
John West Blassingame.
Okay.
The slave community, plantation in America.
Yeah, but Steve, I'm talking about the one he wrote on Bhutan, who just grew. All right. But anyway, when Western doctors write you a prescription, okay,
Right.
how many times have you looked at that prescription and said, what the hell does that say?
A lot, every time.
Every time. You know, and it's not just their handwriting, it's written in Latin for the most part. Okay? And what that does is it affects you psychologically. And it gives you the idea that they done gave you a medicine which you can't even decipher, which is written in Latin, that, oh, this must be the bomb because they wrote it in Latin and it's really mysterious and what have you. But you go home and you take that crap. Okay? But like I said, it's a psychological thing. All right? That they write this in Latin and it makes it seem something that you can't decipher and understand. Well, it's the same thing with the witch doctors. When they would cast these spells, okay, it was just to keep your psychologically, it was to affect you psychologically.
Right.
All right? Because the mind is a big part of your healing. Okay? To believe that you could be healed. And so that's what they would do. You know, they would give you first a psychological preparation before they gave you the actual medicine. Okay? And this was real medicine that these herbologists who were experts, so much so, okay, and check this out, that professors from Harvard went to West Africa to learn how to make these medicines and brought them back and put them in pill form and then manipulated these pills to addict you to that crap that they give you, that they manipulated and corrupted from the African so-called witch doctors who were actually physicians. And learn something today.
You gonna learn something today.
WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye.
Yeah. Steve, what's good? Would you say voodoo Nsoromma?
No, that ain't it.
Okay, that ain't it either. Yeah. Miss Bob, what's good, bro?
Yes.
Hey, yo, Ty, Brother King, what's happening? John, hey, yo. Yeah, what you say? Yo, you know I can't answer that online. Nah, you don't. Alright, yo, link up.
WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. You know, it's something when black people have accomplishments, they always find a Caucasian to compare them to.
Right.
Okay? For instance, the great Negro League baseball player and great slugger, Josh Gibbs, is also referred to as the black Babe Ruth. Well, maybe Babe Ruth is the white Josh Gibson. Okay? Now, I got another one for you. Joseph Boulogne, who was called the Black Mozart. Okay, he was an 18th century polymath. Okay, who had a brilliant music and life diminished by the meaning nickname, the Black Mozart. He was nothing of the sort. And a polymath is someone that is skilled in several fields. Okay, he was a great musician, a violinist, among other things. This cat was something else, man. Joseph Boulogne, he was also known as Chevalier de St. Georges.
Chevalier.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, when you learn to do
Yeah, buddy.
Okay.
Yeah, buddy. Well, a couple of years ago, Searchlight Pictures announced a plan for a movie about Joseph Boulogne, the 18th century composer known as Chevalier de St. George. Yes, Lord. Okay. When the announcement was made, headlines resurrected yet another moniker for Boulogne, the Black Mozart. Okay? Presumably intended as a compliment, this erasure of Boulogne's name not only subjugates him to an arbitrary white standard, but also diminishes his truly unique place in Western classical music history. Few musicians had led a life as fascinating as the multifaceted Boulogne. Recounting it, however, is an exercise in educated guesswork, what is known as scantily and contradictorily documented, but when purely anecdotal. To make matters worse, a 19th century novel by Roger de Beauvoir, Les Chevaliers de St. Georges, intertwined fact and fiction so seamlessly that many of his fabrications gradually found a place in Ballone's assumed biography. All right? This cat, okay, let me give you a little history on it.
Okay.
He was the illegitimate son of a wealthy French plantation owner and an enslaved African woman. He was born in between 1739 and 49 on the island of Basse-Terre, the western half of Guadeloupe.
Okay.
When he was about 10, his mother followed his father and the rest of his legitimate family back to France. Now, the French was, and sometimes the Spanish, they were a little different about their offspring from slave women. Okay? Because Ballone, his father paid for him to go to school, and he was enrolled in elite schools and received private lessons in music and fencing. Okay? Fencing, sword fighting.
Yeah, sword fighting.
His first claim to fame, in fact, was as a champion fencer. All right? He had cut your ass up. Boom! Yes, indeed. The best-known disciple of the renowned master Le Bouchier. A painting depicting a match between Ballone and Chevalier de Lorme remains on display in Buckingham Palace. Okay? His extraordinary fencing talent led Louis XV to name him Chevalier de St. Georges. That's where that came from. After his father's noble title. All right? And he's an illegitimate child. He's, what they call a bastard. All right? Now, the thing about his music.
Right.
Okay, let me tell you. In 1775, he wrote 2 symphonies for 2 violins and orchestra. His initial contribution to a genre he and other French composers at the time helped define. Okay?
These were black Frenches, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Black Frenchmen. Okay? Now, he wrote that in 1775. Mozart comes along in 1778, traveled to Paris, was staying there from March to September, and briefly under the same roof as Ballone. Guess what? It's likely that Mozart was Ballone's student.
That's what he had it 5 years before he did it.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a couple years. What you say? He had 75 and he got in 78. That was 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's implausible to say that Mozart did not hear Ballone's music when he was staying there. All right, when
they might have been musicianal friends.
Most likely they were. All right, and I tell you, Mozart's first composition after his return to Austria was his symphony Concentrate in E flat. Okay, and that shows the extreme influence that Ballone had on Mozart. Stop calling him the Black Mozart, y'all. It wasn't so. If anything, he was Mozart's tutor. And that's not Afrocentric, that's Afrocentricity.
Okay.
WHGE 95.3 FM, ring the bell, sucker schools in.
Look at that. Hey, y'all hear him? He going in today. Y'all better tune in. Y'all better ask some questions. Y'all want this knowledge. Yo, it ain't a game. We might be smiling at you, but it ain't nothing funny.
Yeah, it's fun.
Cole, what's good? You cooking today? Fill a belly? Aight. Fill a belly, fill a belly.
Yeah, buddy. All right. WHGE 95.3 FM, the open eye.
True that.
Yes, indeed.
844 WHGE 95.3. 844-944-3953.
All right. Nsoromma in the house.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move forward to some African American history.
Okay.
All right. You ever heard of the Robert Charles riots?
Riots?
Riots, yeah.
Robert Charles riots.
Yes, indeed. Okay. Now, let me explain something to you. When you mention riots before the 40s, 50s, and 60s,
right?
Okay, know that those riots are likely perpetrated by white supremacists.
Okay.
In late 1865, Robert Charles was born a free man in Copiah County, southwest Mississippi.
Right.
And it was not long after the Union Army had dealt the treasonous insurrection its final defeat at the battlefield of Appomattox. Child's parents would have been enslaved when they conceived him, but he was born free. The most concrete things that can be said about his childhood in Copaya are that his parents were sharecroppers, as well as being literate, okay, which was kind of unusual for black free slaves to be literate. As a matter of fact, it was unusual for poor whites to be literate in that time. And his father was a registered voter. Well, it's especially noteworthy about Copaya, Mississippi, was that unlike elsewhere in Mississippi, it developed a political coalition between poor whites and African Americans under the banner of the Independent Party until 1883, when the white supremacist influence finally captured the minds of the poor whites. That year, interracial class solidarity at the ballot box in Mississippi was defeated by way of assassinations and a mass riot led by the county's white Democratic Party. This was the world in which Robert Childs grew to adulthood. Okay. Throughout his 20s, Childs did what many young men from poor black backgrounds did during the late 19th century. He got the hell out of Dodge. He took to the road in search of decent jobs, opportunity, and independence. By century's end, he had established himself in New Orleans. Remember, he grew up literate, working a variety of jobs and generally residing around Central City, along with thousands of others who migrated to the city from places as close as Copaya and as far away as Sicily, China, and Ireland. Couldn't you dig it? All right. He was known around the neighborhood for his intelligence, his love of reading, his autodidactism, which means self-education, and his promotion of Back to Africa movement. He was a Pan-Africanist. Late in the night of July 23rd, 1900, Childs and a friend were doing what so many New Orleans would have done on a hot July evening. They were sitting on the porch having a drink and waiting for friends to finish work. 3 white police officers demanded to know what they were doing on their own damn porch. Or for whatever reason, one of the officers grabbed Childs and started a scuffle. Well, Childs, you know, he went with that. He whooped his ass. And what is certain is that one of the officers pulled his gun, to which Childs in return pulled his own gun. Shots were fired, and Childs took a bullet in the leg before escaping into the night in his to his apartment. Upon returning to his apartment on 4th Street between North Rampart, now Donnell, and South Saratoga, he grabbed his Winchester .38 rifle. It was a rifle. When police found the trail of blood around in his apartment, Childs said, "Oh, the hell with this." And he opened fire, killing 2 officers before escaping into the night, where he holed up at an apartment not far from Drysdale Market by the corner of present-day MLK and Aretha Castle Hill. Even as Childs had no way of knowing as he hid out as an African-American man in 1900 New Orleans, he surely would have guessed what was about to occur in the streets around him. And he was now dubbed an arch fiend of white New Orleans. The mayor had given any man a license to kill Childs, and a reward was offered for his body, dead or alive. So you know what happened. Thousands of white New Orleanians rioted through the streets and tore through homes looking for any sign of Childs. These men had practiced terrorizing everyday New Orleanians, black and white alike, having engaged in the similar anti-Sicilian riot only 9 years before, and they went about their bloodshed with the skill of professionals, burning down schoolhouses, beating countless people, and killing at least 20 people before it was all over. Okay, they captured.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, when how about if we group up like they just did the Israelites, and they had guns and all of that instead of just being humble? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like when they really cause us to snap and really cause us to go to bear arms and go get it, they're gonna be upset and they're gonna be really, 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 really scared. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that just started from 2 over authoritative white police officers bothering somebody on property that they're paying for.
Right.
I mean, where do they get in trouble at? You know what I'm saying?
How about that?
Where is the line held for them to have started all of that? From that little incident that could have been avoided. You know?
Yeah.
That's crazy. But now he's on a run and he's a fugitive for defending himself on his own property against some tyrants that what you call them?
Terrorists.
No, you call them race.
Race soldiers?
Yeah, race soldiers.
Some race soldiers.
You know? And that's ridiculous, man.
Yeah. Well, the police got a tip of where he was, and they came to the number in thousands that surrounded his hiding spot. Okay?
Right.
But he wasn't going to take it. He wasn't going down alone. And he killed 5 police officers before they got him. Now, here's the thing that's interesting about this whole thing. Someone pointed out that Robert Charles was educated. This was during the riots. And they burnt all the black schools in New Orleans at that time. And there was not another black school in New Orleans for 17 years. Because of the fear of educating a black man. You know, an educated black man is uppity. How dare he?
Wow.
WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye.
Yeah, I got it. Yaga, yo, big man, what's good? Janelle, hey, Stefan, hey, Stefan, what's good? Hey, yo, bro, I see you. Yeah. All the way to the end. We here to the end, baby boy. We here to the end.
Hey, you remember Amber Geiger?
Amber Geiger, that's the white girl that killed the black boy in the bed, or something like that.
In his own
the wrong house. Yeah. Okay.
Yep, my man on the case.
Okay, yeah.
But what the hell is she trying to appeal?
What?
Yeah.
And you know what? They probably give it to her because she's what you call the face of America. the white female is the face of America. You know that, right?
Yes, indeed.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
so they don't want to make them look too bad.
Oh no. Now she already got a slap on the wrist.
Just the slap and shit. They ain't supposed to cut the wrist off, maybe the arm or something. I don't know, man.
It's 10 years for murder, and now she wants to file an appeal.
Because they knew that they would do that, you know. 10 years, you do 2 years, and then you can get out on good behavior 3 years and do the rest on your own brace or on probation. You know, they set it up for them, but it's straight execution for us, man. Right. What's her story, bro? What's her story?
Well, she appealed to the Supreme Court, okay? And even the Supreme Court said, you know what? We ain't about to stir these black people.
We don't want to riot. We don't want to riot right now.
We don't want to riot.
That's what they building up. They building it all up to where it's though. Okay, y'all really want war this time? We are what you call technology out for and ready for war. Yeah. So it's a different war that's going to happen this time.
That's what. And y'all don't want that.
They don't want that. We don't even want that.
Now, what would motivate her to think that she could get an appeal? Well, obviously, white privilege, which she's already enjoyed. Anytime you only get 10 years for a murder. Right. You know, you outright murdered somebody sitting in their home enjoying their surroundings in their home. You know? Well, right. I'll tell you what. This is part of what motivated her. Wow. Katie Quackenbush. Yeah, say it again, bro. Katie Quackenbush. Quackenbush. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Quackenbush, who shot a homeless man twice because he had the audacity to tell her to turn down his music and please pull away because that exhaust is choking me up and I'm trying to sleep. Now the man's homeless. How much empathy would it take you to pull down the street? She told him, go to hell. I'm what's her name? I'm Miss Quackenbush. And I'm an aspiring country singer. And you know what? I'm going to get out the car and I got something for you. So she shot the 54-year-old. Wow. Yeah, shot him twice. Wow. Yeah. Well, that's the word is over. Yeah. And she asked him, because he said in court, she told him, would you want to die tonight?
Wow.
And she shot him and jumped back in her car. She didn't jump back in her car and go run off home and go hide in the basement. Yeah, she went to Taco Bell. Ain't that a black man? Hey, how she went to Taco Bell?
Oh, my
She just shot this dude.
Murdered him. Did he?
No, he didn't die. But she meant to kill him.
Attempted.
Attempted murder.
Right.
You know, Gerald Melton was his name. He suffered a critical abdominal wound, and he had to undergo multiple surgeries since the shooting.
Wow.
Okay. Well, they locked her up, this smug hussy. All right. And the judge said, well, you know, it's something, and she got up there with them white tears. Ain't nothing like them white tears. All right.
Please, Uncle Judge.
Yeah. And she said, people were making fun of me online. I was convicted by the community before the trial. For 5 years, I had to live with this social punishment. Social punishment ain't a damn thing compared to going to jail. Well, the court and the judge said, well, you know, the ordeal has probably made you a better person. And she wants to be there for her young children. And she said, oh, yes, this has inspired me to do better. You sorry hussy, you shot a man in the stomach and then went to Taco Bell with your cold-hearted ass.
Boo. I know that was late, y'all.
You know, that's all right. Well, guess what?
What?
They were probation.
Oh, yeah.
You attempted murder.
Tears.
The white tears.
Them tears dropped. Got her. Can you help me, please? Can you help me, please?
Probation.
Yeah.
You know what?
Ain't that crazy, man?
I can't remember the journalist's
That's
name.
the inequality and injustice system.
Man, it is.
And that's crazy, man.
Yeah.
That's where the teardown has to begin, though.
That's where it has to begin.
I mean.
All right. And this is a quote from, I can't think of the cat's name right now, but I'm telling you, I'm quoting someone in this, but he's right on point. All right. Is it just my imagination? Or are police kinder to white supremacist terrorists than they are to black people who are unarmed? Well, I took a look at the data, and here's what I found. Peyton Gendron murdered 10 people in Buffalo. He was calmly arrested.
Mm-hmm.
Nicholas Cruz murdered 17 people in Parkland. He was calmly arrested. Dylan Roof murdered 9 people in Charleston, and he was calmly arrested and given some Burger King. Patrick Christiananis murdered 23 people in El Paso. He was calmly arrested. James Holmes murdered 12 in Colorado. He was calmly arrested. Meanwhile, Dante Wright, Tamir Rice, Breonna Taylor, Eric Garner, George Floyd, Aiyana Jones, and the list goes on and on of unarmed, innocent black people killed by these damn race soldiers, known as law enforcement.
Wow.
Here's the data by a Harvard study. Black people are 3 times more likely to be killed by police than are white people.
3 times?
3 times. Moreover, white people are twice as likely to be armed as black people. So yeah, it's not in your head. This is what systemic white supremacy looks like. This is why we cannot stop fighting for justice. Yeah. Even though it's 12 o'clock, I got a Matthew Cook reading that I want to
drop on him.
Drop
it, bro. Drop it.
Matthew Cook is a white dude who's a documentarian, historian, this, that, and the other.
Okay.
And he be bringing the truth. Mm-hmm.
And what's this truth?
This truth is about this guy, he said, was a barbarian. And
what's a barbarian?
He was a barbarian.
Oh, he was.
Not Matthew Cook, this guy he's talking about.
Oh, okay.
He was a barbarian and a senator from North Carolina. His name was Preston Brooks.
Okay.
And on May 22nd, 1856, he beat Massachusetts Senator Charles Sumner with a cane on the floor of the Senate in retaliation for Sumner's anti-slavery speech. Beating with a cane. Historians describe this as the moment the country was pushed to civil war. After the beating with a thick cane that had a gold head, Sumner was knocked down. He was blinded by his own blood, and he collapsed, lapsing into unconsciousness. Brooks beat Sumner until his cane broke and still kept going while thousands rallied in support of Sumner in Boston, Albany, Cleveland, Detroit, New Haven, Providence, and New York. Over 1 million copies of Sumner's anti-slavery speech went nationwide. Ralph Waldo Emerson, the most influential writer of that time, said after the incident, "I do not see how a barbarous community and a civilized community can constitute one state. I think we either get rid of slavery or we get rid of freedom." Which is it? While Sumner recovered, Southern leaders ridiculed him, accusing him of cowardice for not returning to the Senate. Well, the Massachusetts General Court, they re-elected him that November, but he couldn't last a day. His recovery took years. Somebody beat the hell out of you with a stick, with a
gold tip stick. You didn't hit with the hammer side.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Come on. During the Civil War, Sumner became the leader of the radical Republicans, who at that time represented the North and were demanding an immediate, permanent eradication of slavery without compromise. Remember that line, without compromise.
Okay.
Abraham Lincoln described Sumner as his ideal of a bishop and consulted him as an embodiment of the conscience of the American people. In 1865, as the war was drawing to a close, Lincoln proposed voting rights for African Americans. That was the influence of the radical Republicans on Lincoln, who was nothing but a real white supremacist damn self. But he proposed voting rights for African Americans in the South, and he was assassinated days later.
Oh, yeah. You can't flip the script.
Oh, hell no.
What you doing?
You know?
What you doing, Lincoln?
You know? So Sumner and the radical Republicans demanded harsh measures in the South. They demanded more protection, civil rights, and voting rights for the freedmen.
Okay.
And the elimination of any Confederate nationalism. They wanted to keep ex-Confederates from gaining political office, and rightfully so. They wanted to keep them from undoing the North's moral victory over slavery. So over the next decade, black Americans were voting in huge numbers. They elected 22 black men to serve in Congress, and they helped elect Ulysses S. Grant. Well, the Southern Confederates, they responded with the Black Code laws designed to control African Americans through a system similar to slavery. And in response, Sumner co-authored the Civil Rights Act of 1865. He did that with the help of John Mercer Langston. If you don't know who he was the founding dean of the law school at Howard University. And that bill passed 1 year after Sumner's death, but it was never enforced. That would be the last civil rights legislation passed for nearly a century until the 1960s. Sumner's friends were worried about his safety, and they warned him to temper his statements. And Sumner left them with this parting advice. When crime and criminals are thrust before us, they are to be met with all the energies that God has given us by argument, scorn, sarcasm, and denunciation. From the beginning of our history, this country has been afflicted by compromise. It is by compromise that human rights have been abandoned. I'm not compromising a damn thing.
That's right.
Not a damn thing. And as we always tell you, destiny determines who enters your life, but you decide who stays. Therefore, value those who value you, and don't treat those as a priority.
Who treat you as an option.
It's been an open eye with Patrice Gibbs.
Nsoromma, WHGE 95.3 FM. Tune in next Saturday, 11 to 12. You dig? I'm right.
All right.
Yo, thank y'all sharing. Hey, yo, them tears, them victim tears, I don't believe in that either. Yo, them tears dry. Them tears dry. Yo, stop. Yo, you cut Vic on, girl. Go ahead. Go ahead. Hey, yo, thank y'all for tuning in.
Yeah.
You know, our time go quick. I was a little late, but B was here. Was you on time, bro?
No, indeed.
Oh, okay,
No,
yeah.
I was running a little late myself, but it's all good because I'm sure I had enough time for you to learn something.
That's right.
All right, and like I always tell you, like I've been telling you the last few weeks, I got 3 words for you: global African supremacy. Peace.
Peace. And if we get together, stick together, get this money together, Nsoromma stream it on all platforms.
All right, brother.